Ibashe Oludumare, Ibashe Owumila, Ibashe Awo Akoda, Ibashe Asheda, Ibashe Edubona Mefa, Ibashe Agbongbon, Oba Ile Ife, Ibashe Adabalotu Ife, Ibashe Olokun, Ibashe Olasa, Ibashe Aje Ogun Kuloso Olamba Aye, Ibashe Ita Merindinokun, Ibashe Olunoko, Ibashe Okunoko, Ibashe Okiti Awoko, Ibashe Oguni Male Edeju, Ibashe Babas, Ibashe Yeyes, Ibashe Ori, Ibashe Tototo, Oludumare Emojuba. Kiba me eshi Olunjuba. Ashe, 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 Ashe.
But the true essence of magical or occult phenomenon is the creation of an ego, the creation of an identity, but an identity that will hold and maintain through lifetimes. The all in all is a spiritual and unseen subcontext that lies beneath all of reality. That is the all, and that within itself is mental. The greatest thing you can do in this moment is to be aware that these events are happening and to start digging into your creative mind as to where you can begin to assist. So these are not theories and thoughts and ideas that have been developed within me overnight, nor are they theories, thoughts, and ideas that have been developed inside of a vacuum. But they've been tried and proven. The real currently is the desert of the mind, because your mind can only perceive what is real, but you have yet to actually fully. So if the universe is mental, then can the universe learn something? Certainly.
Yeah, so here we are again. Foundational Fridays. Welcome. I am Chief Yuya Assaan-ANU, head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center, and Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order. And we are once again cruising and vibing along the pathways of enlightenment and transformation through its angle and dimension known as Foundational Friday. It's a glorious day. Glorious day. Why is it a glorious day? When I look over the archives of emails and messages that I've received from individuals, which I've been doing, I've been immersed in a end of the financial year cleansing and review. I see the ascension of the questions that have been sent in. Individuals who were confused about one thing in January, coming into this winter or from the fall, are now solid in those thoughts, ideas, and concepts. So for me, it's a glorious day because I'm like any invested gardener or farmer or cultivator of the human consciousness. I love to sit back and watch the growth. Turn on for me, watching the growth. So the seeds that have been planted earlier this year and past shows, I've been able to see. And that's why it's important sometimes to sit back, be still for a moment, and take inventory and resource. Sometimes we move hard so fast, and we stay with this hardened approach, and we are so focused on where we want to be that we're not looking at the ground that we're covering right in front of us, and not realizing how far we've actually come. You know, sometimes it's difficult to do if we do not have a base of operations, whether that be a philosophical, mental, spiritual, or even physical base, to be able to go back to into repose and look at what we've accomplished. So I look at the great achievement for my student body so far, and I look at people coming to such a strong awareness that they're actually even able to teach some of those concepts to others. And I'd say that's great. That's really good. So today I was looking through some of the emails and seeing what has gone unanswered and, what may still be lingering and what doesn't need to be answered. And I saw some folks who even answered their own questions later on in some of the emails that were sent in. That's a good thing. Foundational Friday seeks to establish the foundations of our growth experience and to respect those foundations. Respect the shoulders that we stand on and give honor and respect to the basics that always are the elements that win the fight and that win the war. It's always the basics. It's never the complex ideas. It's never the complex strategies or movements. It's the small plan within the larger plan. And when you can create fractals of plans within plans, then you can get to where you need to go. And each time you execute a plan, you should look back and say, okay, how many plans have I executed thus far? How many small goals have I met? Take proper inventory and resource, because if you don't, then it becomes very difficult to value where you are or value what you are without taking proper inventory of where you've come. So I feel this will be an interesting show this evening, and we're going to get into the topic of the show, and we're going to get into the science and the thoughts of the show right after we return from these announcements. Okay, announcements. On the 16th of November, between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., Felicia Tyrell Anu will be presenting Shrines and Altars, Establishing Your Spiritual Gateway, a workshop at Nicholas Bookstore. I urge you all to go to the events page on Enlightenment and Transformation to get more information, as well as to RSVP. Very important that you RSVP early on. Also, December 27th, I will be presenting a workshop, Power of the 14 African Principles, at Black and Nobel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That is December 27th, between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. And I'm sure you will enjoy that. Again, I urge you to RSVP now. You can go to Enlightenment and Transformation for more information on those two workshops. Also, we urge everyone to sign up for the free Arisha Unlock Your Inner Power podcast-based class on the SaduluHouse.com. We are coming down to the wire. We'll be presenting not only our new spiritual training, phase 1, on the Sadulu House, but several other classes that we have coming, which will be supportive classes. We have more free classes coming forth as a support to the Anu spiritual training, and also as an offering to our listening audience, those who are just here enjoying the information and applying the information. You can get a first-hand approach to our learning material by way of our free courses. So we urge you to sign up. Of course, Unleash Your Inner Power is podcast based, but we'll be putting some other ones up there as well that are directly and exclusive just to the SaduluHouse.com platform. So we look forward to you joining us over there. Of course, every Sunday, we have a live broadcast by the name of Chief Speaks. You can tune in right here on Enlightenment and Transformation, and you can call in with your questions. And I ask that we keep the questions down to at least one question per caller. And that's 11 a.m. every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. And that is the Chief Speaks show, which is a live Q&A segment where you can call in and ask the questions that you need to. All right. And that has been our announcements for this segment. Now back to our broadcast. So here we are, we're back. This is Foundational Friday, and I am Yuya Assaan-ANU. And so far, we have ventured into this space, and I know I have not announced the topic, but it's one that I feel some will be drawn to very quickly, and then it may take others a moment to really accept and appreciate. But what we're going to speak about in this show is the spirit and the energy of the rainbow, as the title of the show, of course, suggests. And I know within the culture of many indigenous systems, the rainbow is a prominent figure, but we usually don't tap into it as much as maybe we could or we should, because it's a sometime type of phenomenon. You know, so it's not like when we think about the energies of the sun or of water or of the moon, and we know within a few hours, you know, we're going to be able to interact with either one of them consistently on a daily basis. Whereas the rainbow represents more of a miracle almost, you know, an occasional miracle. Of course, the understanding of the rainbow, it helps us to really see the relationship between ourselves and the cosmos. In this show, we're going to really be speaking about the laws of correspondence. Okay, because of course we can look at the rainbow and we can look at its beauty and we can enjoy it and we can trace it, and, you know, but we have to also remember that as above, so below. So if there is a rainbow expressing itself on the planet, then there's a rainbow expressing itself in the cosmos. If there's a rainbow expressing itself in the cosmos, there's a rainbow expressing itself within your inner verse, inside of you. So in our Yoruba culture, we have an acknowledgement and a connection with that rainbow energy. And we have an archetype known as Osumare, sometimes also pronounced Oshunmare. Okay. And one of the interesting things that you will see with Oshunmare is that if you look at the names of different Orisha throughout the pantheon of the Orisha, the family of Orisha, some only acknowledge the 401 Orisha, and then some go further. But either way, you will find great difficulty finding another Orisha with the suffix Mare on their name. And you can, you know, scan your mental Rolodex as you're listening, or maybe looking in your books. One of the things that you may find is that that suffix Mare will only show itself in the name of Oludumare. You will not find too many other entities or energies with the name Mare attached to it. So that right there is a clue to let us know that there is something very special about Osumare or Oshunmare. We have to also even consider the fact that Oshun's name is in there. It must be revealing to us that there is even something special about Oshun, to be able to receive such an honor as to have the Mare tag. So I will warn you, this segment, I'm going to keep things fairly light. I would like to keep things fairly light in this particular segment. I will not go too deep, and I strive to do that, but in some of my earlier segments, especially my Orisha breakdowns, I would always try to keep things maybe just a few steps beneath the surface, but make sure that everything that I was saying was palatable and individuals listening could get something and use it right away. Sometimes when you give too much information, an individual does not know where to begin. So I'm going to try to keep this segment pretty light, and make it an enjoyable experience. So we go back again to the spirit of the rainbow that we call Osumare. And what is so critical about Osumare? Well, let's start with the rainbow. What is a rainbow? A rainbow is light refraction. When light hits water at a 42-degree angle, we have what's called a rainbow. And inside of that rainbow, we have a prism of light. And that prism of light, when the light refracts, what it leaves, that angle, when it reflects at that angle, it leaves what we know to be a rainbow. Well, the colors of the rainbow, I should say. Okay. And this is only possible with the stimulus of the element known as water. So a rainbow is made between two elements, one being water and one being sunlight. And when you combine light with water and a refraction of 42 degrees, you receive the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet that we're able to perceive of the rainbow. Now, of course, many of you listening, you probably also know, some of you know, and some of you may not know. It's okay. We're all at different levels, but we're all going to get there. That's one thing you got to know. No matter how far someone is ahead of you, you're going to get there. You may get there in a Bentley, or you may get there in a Beetle. But either way, we're getting to the same place. We're going to the same place. So when I listed those colors, some of you may have realized that those colors are also the colors of the chakras. Red for the root, orange for the sacral, yellow for the solar chakra, green for the heart chakra, blue for the throat chakra, indigo for the brow chakra, and violet for the crown chakra. Okay. So those same colors have been noted for the chakras, and sometimes the colors change a little bit. For instance, sometimes people will say that the crown chakra is actually white, and those who have invested in the understandings of 9 ether will say that the crown chakra is black. So, it's up to interpretation and perception, because obviously when we're talking about color, we're talking about things that we're going to see. So it's up to one's own perception of what they actually see. So we have this energy known as Osumare. And what is Osu? Well, Su, we know, means the source, but it also means the moon. O, as I've said in so many different lectures and workshops, that's the one little piece of Yoruba I usually will teach people, because I think it helps when I share that O. Anytime you see the word O, or the letter O, it is signifying ownership or the spirit of. So if we were to look at Osu, or Oshu, we know that we are speaking of the spirit of the moon, or the spirit of the source. Oshun is the spirit of the source. And when we're looking at the energy of Oshun, and we're acknowledging that it is the spirit of the source, within that name form, it also relates itself to the menstrual cycle. Especially when we look at Oshun's Odu, known as Irosun Meji. What is an Odu? A womb. The womb that gives birth to Oshun, and that Oshun operates from, one of them, is named Irosun Meji, which means Oshun sings. But it also relates itself to blood, to the menses. And then we have Mare. Okay. And Mare means serpent, but not only does Mare mean serpent, but Mare also means deepness. Mare also means the essence. Mare also means the immensity of power. Okay, so Mare has different understandings attached to it, but one of the things that you will find with Mare, if you look at deepness and if you look at the intensity of power, and Mare also means the eternal, this brings us to a feminine idea and element, because we can apply that same energy to Odu, womb, the womb. The womb is immense. The womb is an infinite void. The womb is deep. You see, you get where we're going with this. So we got a lot of feminine energy here. And when we're dealing with the source, it lets us know that the source of things comes from a womb, right? If things do not source themselves from a womb, then we have to question its spiritual origins. So, when we look at the concept of Osumare, or the rainbow serpent, we cannot remove ourselves from the idea and the concept of the chakras. For a really good understanding of this, I would advise some of you to research the Odu of Obara Meji. And Obara Meji has an Odu or Pataki associated with it, where it speaks about a time when divination was done, and the divine of Akbale divined that the vulture was bald, so it need not fear the razor of the python. And the blacksmith did not want war to be taken from the planet, or from Onile, which is the earth. And this was cast for Eji Obara. Eji means twin. And Eji Obara was the child of the vulture, the python, and the blacksmith. And this was told on the day that they were getting ready to cast Dafa in the temple of Olofin. And every 9 days they would have to go cast Dafa. So before I go through the whole Odu, because I mean, just with the little bit I told you, you can probably just search some of those terms. You may find that Odu yourself. I'm not sure. I've actually never seen it written. This was something that was told to me, but with Odu, there's so many out there now. Sometimes I'm on the internet and I see Odus that I learned years ago that I had to remember orally, or that I had to write in my notes, and they're out there. But I always found this particular Odu interesting, obviously, because for one, Ogun's in there. So because when we speak about the blacksmith and you see words like blacksmith and war, you already know you're talking about Ogun. And I've done shows before on decoding patakis and breaking them down and seeing the elements in there, where we see the idea of the vulture. It says the vulture was born, need not fear of razor of the python. As soon as you see a vulture, you know you're dealing with the Iyami. You're dealing with the Aj, or who we call the witches. Okay, Awoni Legi. And when we see the python, we know whenever we see a serpent, it's a reference to Osumare. So, this particular Odu talks about it, whenever they would go to Olofin's space, he would feed them, and then he would take pumpkins and he would put money in them, and Okuniniyu, and different things inside the pumpkins. I won't give the whole pataki. And he would have Eshu then kind of give power to the Odus that he would put onto the pumpkins. He would make these Odus with a knife. And it goes through a whole long pataki. It's a pretty long story, actually. But there's a lot more to break down in it. But one of the first things that we see, which is important in it, is we see the inclusion of those three energies. And we start to get a sense of how they are intended to interoperate together. And I'm going to get right back into this, but first, we're going to take a break.
Of her love and validation of your humanity and your genius will remain with you forever. For we are hearers of the word. And if we often enough hear that we are beloved and precious, we will be able to dispel those pejorative adjectives that in many instances have caused our children to make their own back door without realizing that that's what they're doing, and enter into that back door comfortably in these sacred places where you meet the intellectuals, where you meet the ancestors, where we call on them to be with us, to protect us, to sustain us, to direct us. Because I know that they are in our lives still. And if we live in the way to hear their voices, they will direct us. They will protect us. They will comfort us. They will guide us. And they have directed me to emphasize to you that this elder, who in the tradition of our people is willing to cast away the Western American idealism of youth, the elders who will not dye their hair and have their faces lifted, who are willing to be the elders, not just growing old, but growing in wisdom, growing in sagacity, growing in patience, growing in the freedom to speak the truth and to reiterate it, willing to hear Mother Franklin say, teach, willing to embrace the call and response modality of our people, that the Jegna within our community, who are willing to make the sacrifice, meaning that they are willing to take the harsh blows of a world that calls them reverse racist because we love our people, willing to make that sacrifice and pay the heavy toll that we pay for that. It is with that kind of aura that I call you.
Okay. Yes. That was the incomparable Adelaide Sanford, speaking about the deepness and the enormity of the feminine principle. She is a woman. She sits on the New York State Board of Regents, and she is a woman that I, on many occasions, have just feasted on her words. That Queen Mother energy, real Queen Mother energy. I know we throw that word around a lot, and it's sad because we have really desecrated the true ideology and perception of what a Queen Mother is. It's not just someone who has a bunch of children or someone who looks the part, but the way this woman has been able to maintain her consciousness in an environment that seeks to do nothing but quash the consciousness and the wild, natural genius of a population of youth. The way this woman has been able to maintain her position and posture is amazing. She's amazing. Amazing elder, Adelaide Sanford. So for some of you who listen to me sometimes and you wonder where I get some of my view, not my words, not my thoughts, but my view, some of the eyes that I'm allowed to look through sometimes. She's one of the people who shares information and lets you see things through her eyes. And then you can draw up your own conclusion, of course. but I've not sat on the New York Board of Regents. Even though I worked in education for years, I have not reached the heights that she has. So it's so beautiful that she would share them and can share them from a perspective that speaks to my own imperative. So we're coming back to the energy of Osumare, the serpent archetype. And we were reviewing the energy of Obara Meji. And of course, we know in Obara Meji lives the energy of Shango, as well as the energy of Obatala. Interesting enough, because it is said that Osumare is employed by Shango. And of course, we know that we need light and water in order to create a rainbow. And many of us know that Obatala is signified by light. Things tend to weave in and out of one another and give us the sense that we need. So back to the idea of this rainbow serpent as known by Osumare. Well, as we said, if we're dealing with the Hermetic laws, we know that one of those laws is the laws of correspondence. The law of correspondence, as above, so below. So anything that we can perceive with our two flesh eyes, which are our poor eyes, certainly has also been reproduced with the first eye reality. So rainbow serpent, what is the rainbow? The rainbows are the chakras. What is the serpent? The serpent is your kundalini energy. So Osumare is an external archetypical representation of the kundalini energy. Obviously very important to our chakra, or what we may know as our endocrine system. Now, let's go a little further into this. Like I said, I will keep it simple for this segment, but we'll go a little further in, of course, right? So this energy of these 7, like we like to call them, the 7 major chakras, and the energy of these chakras, the idea of them vibrating with the same colors of what we know to be the rainbow, obviously connects us to these energies, connects us to the energy of the rainbow, connects us to the energy of the different houses that our soul may reside in as we're going through our life journey. The chakras are wheels, but they are also houses, and in essence, they are also prisons. Okay, so the essential aspects of the serpent and the chakras is not just related to the colors. It's not just related to the idea of the snake, but it is also related to our various elements. Of course, through the rainbow, we get the combination of light and water, and that serpent resides in the root chakra, also known as the base chakra or the earth chakra. So now we have a triad of earth, water, and light. Well, how is the kundalini raised? How does it go from the root to the crown? How does the serpent raise up and erect? Well, typically it's raised up and it erects itself through Emi, or the divine breath of life. So you will find in many systems where chakras are worked with, balanced, and taught, that breathing exercises are the root and foundation of those systems. Breathing, such as systems like Qigong, so much is reliant on breath. Why is it reliant on breath? Because in order to raise chakra energy, you need the power and the propulsion of Olodumare. The active force of Olodumare is Emi, divine breath, no different than the active force of God the Father being the Holy Spirit, which is of course the feminine aspect. But in our system, we understand Emi to be divine breath. So within divine breath, Emi also means wind or air. So now we have air covered, we have earth covered, we have water covered, and we have light covered. We have all of these different elements that are being employed and used by Osumare, or the rainbow serpent, in order to raise the kundalini energy to a space where it can meet the crown or the top. Okay? Now, it's important for us to remember that when we're going from root chakra, we're going up to crown chakra. Well, the crown, where does it exist? The crown exists in the head, of course, right? So the head we also know to be Ori. Ori. Okay? And what resides in the head? Well, the eyes, of course. The eyes reside in the head. If you look at images of, or the symbolic representation of the energy that many of us know as Osor, and some of you may know as Osiris, you will find that Osor was often depicted as an eye. I spoke on this recently in a show where I was breaking down the symbolism of Oset, and I also spoke on Osor. Okay, so it was also represented as an eye. Now, what's important about that? Well, let's think about the Greek transliteration of the name Osor. It takes us to Osiris. Well, what does Osiris actually mean? Is it just a different way to pronounce Osor? No. Osiris was not just a transliteration of Osor. Osiris was a perception and a perspective of what they felt Osor meant. Okay? It was the aspect that they were able to understand of Osor. And what you will find when it comes to the Kemetic language structure and its translations into Greek, the Greeks were pretty fair in their translations. You know, if you can actually look at some of the Greek words and still get a lot of information. They didn't, because they sought to really gain as much insight as they possibly could from the Kemetic thought pool and wisdom pool, they made sure as much as they could not to confuse themselves. So they kept things as close as they could. So if we look at Osiris, Osiris is a composition of two different words, one being os and one being iris. Os aris is Osiris. Os means to discover. It also means to break open or to open up. This is os. And iris means the eye. We use that term to this day, iris, the iris of your eye. We even have the idea of the Irish, like the song, when the Irish eyes are smiling. Okay, so, and we know that the Irish color, of course, is green, which coincidentally was also the skin color of Osor, or who we also know to be Osiris. Connected, of course. So now, Osiris actually means to open the eye. Well, what exactly happens when you travel the road of Osumare? You are going to open up your eye. You go to the Ori, you go from root to Ori, and what the serpent does is it opens the eye. Okay? As, of course, you know, when we are speaking about the serpent, there's also representation that you may have heard me speak on, and I'm sure you've probably heard other who's broken down the serpent energy, and they know that they sometimes speak about the medical symbol, which provides us with two serpents intertwined around a staff. That staff represents the spinal column, and the serpents represent again the twin kundalini energy. But that staff is called the Caduceus staff, which is a symbol that we of course saw in Kemet. Now, if we look at again the word and the term of Osiris, or Osiris, Iris was also a Greek archetype. Iris was said to be the holder of the caduceus. Iris was the protector and guardian of the caduceus staff. And just so you know, Iris was considered to be the goddess of the rainbow. Iris was the goddess of the rainbow, and it was Iris who placed before Hermes the caduceus staff. Well, who was Hermes? Well, you may know Hermes as the guy with the wings on his feet and the helmet with the wings on it. But when we learn more about Hermes, we learn that Hermes was the Greek version of Tahuti. Okay, Hermes was also a version being the mercurial messenger. There was also an aspect called Mercury, but Hermes would also relate itself to Eshu. Okay, the opener of the way, the remover of obstacles, the owner of obstacles. And Eshu is also the messenger who resides over the nervous system. Eshu also is your emissary who opens up the door to each of your chakra houses. So who would need to have control or ownership over that caduceus staff but Eshu, living of course in the root chakra, and Eshu travels you up top to the crown chakra, where you are to meet Osir or Obatala, or your Ori, takes you from root to head. So when we're dealing with Osumare, what we're dealing with is a pathway and a roadway. And what is the purpose of this roadway? The purpose of this roadway is to unleash and unlock your divine consciousness, or to get you to a place where you can connect with your destiny, or your Iponri, which we know to be the higher self, traveling through the Ori Inu, the inner self, or your inner consciousness. Now remember earlier when I spoke about that Odu, and I said that we had Oludumare, but in Eji Ogbe there was a representation of Ogun, there was a representation of the Ajay, and there was a representation of Osumare as symbolized by the python, or the python, I should say, the python snake. Now, the relationship here is we have the Ajay, which whenever you see Ajay, you know you're also dealing with Oshun, because she is the leader of the Ajay, and it is said that actually Oshun is the vulture. I shared that story. If you go back and listen to the podcast that I did on Oshun, I spoke about the story when she was a peacock flying into the sun and was transformed into a hideous vulture in her efforts to save mankind. In fact, I think it was our sister Kim who also recited that story recently on an Anu Asafo segment. So you have the Ajay, the witches, and they are the typification of the female energy. Okay? And then you have the blacksmith who says that he does not want war to be removed from the face of the planet. Well, this is Ogun, who is the typification of masculine energy. And then between the two of them, you have the python, or Osumare, who is a gateway that the two will travel in order to open up the consciousness. But it is a gateway of infinite and immense deepness and power. Okay? So it's very important that when we look at a rainbow and we are told that the leprechaun, the little guy in green, that the leprechaun has buried its gold on the other side of the rainbow, which of course we could never find where a rainbow ends because it's an infinite pathway. But the gold represents your alchemical graduation, when you now become that conducive element, traveling the roadways of Osumare, or for some of you, it may just be working with the roadways of your own chakra houses. But always to comprehend and know that those chakra houses are not a place that you are expected to stay or to bask in, but they are in fact stepping stones. No different than the rainbow being a pathway from one place to another. Even in our Nordic tradition, we had what was called the Bifrost, or the Bifrost Bridge, which allowed connection or transportation to the 9 realms. Yeah, Osumare, powerful energy, a deep, powerful energy that takes us through the roads of the seen and the perceived, through color. But more importantly, it is the source of immensity and power. So Osumare is very similar to Oduduwa. Very similar. Okay? But as above, so below, the representation is within your chakra houses. So, if one is to ask you, well, how do I work on raising up my kundalini? You immediately know, well, there's a couple of orisha that you can tap into and give adimu or tribute to. One of which being Ogun, the owner of the roadway. One of which being Eshu, the one who holds the Caduceus staff. Because where does your spine sit in? It sits at the base. Who lives at the base? Eshu. And Eshu travels up and down the base, right? Because aren't messages sent through your nervous system up and down your spine? So we know we have Ogun, we have Eshu, we have Oshun, we have Osumare, and we have the witches, the Aje. And of course, well, how do I send them all to task? What offerings do I give? Well, according to this Pataki, we give the offering of divine breath, the nomo, the speech, okay, breathing exercises, mastering and controlling your creative breathing and respiratory potential and abilities will raise the kundalini so that you will be able to interact with Ori or destiny. This is how we get to our destiny. Our destiny is a journey. So therefore, if we have a relationship or an understanding or a symbol of a bridge that takes us to one place or the other, as above, so below, the bridges inside of us are what we must travel to get to our destiny. It doesn't come from stillness. You have to move. It doesn't come from the ignoring of the elements, because we just saw within even the understanding of working with Osumare, it is a culmination of at least 4 of the elements. They are employed in order to get the machine moving and working. Okay. So that has been our segment. And like I said, my aim in this segment was to keep things light, digestible, so you can immediately start experimenting a little bit and understanding that it is divine breath that takes you to where you need to be, but it is the roadway of the rainbow bridge and the rainbow serpent that you travel across. And you must call forth the energy of full masculinity as an Ogun, and the deepness and sometimes even scariness of the Aje, of the witches. In order to get there, there must be respect for all, an acknowledgement and an honoring of all. I will see you Sunday. Chief Speaks, High Frequency Radio, also broadcasted here, so you can just listen right here at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. You can listen here in Enlightenment and Transformation and call in. And I will be doing a Chief Speaks segment where you can call in and ask any of the questions that you desire to on that show. All right. So I look forward to speaking to you all Sunday, and keep an ear out as well for all of our other offerings that are coming. Be sure to sign up on the Sadulu House site for the free course, Orisha, Unlock Your Inner Power. Until next time, I am Chief Yuya Odabo. With this hardened approach, and we are so focused on where we want to be that we're not looking at the ground that we're covering right in front of us and not realizing how far we've actually come. You know, sometimes it's difficult to do if we do not have a base of operations, whether that be a philosophical, mental, spiritual, or even physical base, to be able to go back to into repose and look at what we've accomplished. So I look at the great achievement for my student body so far, and I look at people coming to such a strong awareness that they're actually even able to teach some of those concepts to others. And I'd say that's great. That's really good. So today I was looking through some of the emails and seeing what has gone unanswered, and, you know, what may still be lingering and what doesn't need to be answered. And I saw some folks who even answered their own questions later on in some of the emails that were sent in. That's a good thing. Foundational Friday seeks to establish the foundations of our growth experience and to respect those foundations. When I look over the archives of emails and messages that I've received from individuals, which I've been doing, I've been immersed in a end of the financial year cleansing and review. I see the ascension of the questions that have been sent in. Individuals who were confused about one thing in January, coming into this winter or from the fall, are now solid in those thoughts, ideas, and concepts. So for me, it's a glorious day because I'm like any invested gardener or farmer or cultivator of the human consciousness. I love to sit back and watch the growth. Turn on for me, watching the growth. So the seeds that have been planted earlier this year and past shows, I've been able to see. And that's why it's important sometimes to sit back, be still for a moment, and take inventory and resource. Sometimes we move hard so fast, and we stay foundations. Respect the shoulders that we stand on, and give honor and respect to the basics that always are the elements that win the fight and that win the war. It's always the basics. It's never the complex ideas. It's never the complex strategies or movements. It's the small plan within the larger plan. And when you can create fractals of plans, plans within plans, then you can get to where you need to go. And each time you execute a plan, you should look back and say, okay, how many plans have I executed thus far? How many small goals have I met? Take proper inventory and resource, because if you don't, then it becomes very difficult to value where you are or value what you are without taking proper inventory of where you've come. So I feel this will be an interesting show this evening, and we're going to get into the topic of the show, and we're going to get into the science and the thoughts of the show right after we return from
Ibashe Oludumare, Ibashe Owumila, Ibashe Awo Akoda, Ibashe Asheda, Ibashe Ejubona Mefa, Ibashe Agbongbon, Oba Ile Ife, Ibashe Adabalotu Ife, Ibashe Olokun, Ibashe Olasa, Ibashe Aje Ogun Uloso Olamba Aye, Ibashe Ita Merindinokun, Ibashe Olunoko, Ibashe Okunoko, Ibashe Okiti Awoko, Ibashe Oguni Male Edeju, Ibashe Babas, Ibashe Yeyes, Ibashe Ori, Ibashe Tototo, Oludumare Emojuba. Kiba me eshi orunjuba. Ashe, ashe, ashe,
But the true essence of magical or occult phenomenon is the creation of an ego, the creation of an identity, but an identity that will hold and maintain through lifetimes. The all in all is a spiritual and unseen subcontext that lies beneath all of reality. That is the all, and that within itself is mental. The greatest thing you can do in this moment is to be aware that these events are happening and to start digging into your creative mind as to where you can begin to assist. So these are not theories and thoughts and ideas that have been developed within me overnight, nor are they theories, thoughts, and ideas that have been developed inside of a vacuum. But they've been tried and proven. Real currently is the desert of the mind, because your mind can only perceive what is real, but you have yet to actually fully. So if the universe is mental, then can the universe learn something? Certainly.
Yeah, so here we are again. Foundational Fridays. Welcome. I am Chief Yuya Assaan-ANU, head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center, and Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order. And we are once again cruising and vibing along the pathways of enlightenment and transformation through its angle and dimension known as Foundational Friday. It's a glorious day. Glorious day. Why is it a glorious day?